You know, I had a lot of fun making the Crash one without hitting any boxes vid. Despite having a lot of trouble actually getting the thing out, I enjoyed the process of it, and I'm happy with the end product. I'm writing this before I've actually released the video, so I can only assume that it went extremely viral, garnering me trillions of views, hundreds of sponsorship deals, and that I'm already involved in some sort of controversy and am being cancelled as we speak. But before I sell out entirely, how about another challenge run? I think the next run I should do is pretty obvious. After all, where else would I go after doing a run of Crash 1 than the one, the only, Spyro the Dragon? Because as the old gamer saying goes, where there is Crash, there's Spyro. Can you beat Spyro the Dragon without being a dragon? Now, what exactly do I mean by this? Obviously we can't beat the game literally not as a dragon, it's kind of in the name, but we can simulate not being a dragon by limiting Spyro's moveset. Okay, so here's the rules for the run. Number 1, we're not allowed to use our flame breath, gliding, or flight abilities in gameplay. There are plenty of creatures that can fly, so it could be argued this isn't a unique dragon ability, but Spyro does do it in a particularly dragony way, so I'm gonna count it. And before anyone gets any ideas, no, the loading screens that show Spyro flying between levels don't count. Number 2, we must get rid of sparks before we can continue in any level. This is because as Spyro Enter the Dragonfly shows us, dragons are gifted their dragonfly companions as children, and since we're not a dragon for the purposes of this run, we shouldn't have a dragonfly. Since sparks acts as our health, this means we'll die in one hit. It also means he won't be grabbing any gems for us, making collecting them all slightly more annoying. Number 3, we must collect everything we can. We're aiming for the highest completion percentage possible under these restrictions, and not just to finish the game. Since it's very easy to accidentally use one of these restricted abilities in this run, we won't need to reset unless the use of the ability helps me in gaining a collectible in any way. Just like with the Crash run, I'll be playing on the re-release trilogy of the game through my PS5 since it's the easiest way for me to capture video. One more thing before starting is that if you count all of the individual gems in this game as their own collectible, there are literally thousands of them, so I won't be covering each individual one and more so giving a general overview of each level. If I don't specifically mention something as uncollectible or an area as unreachable, it most likely means it can be completed normally within these rules. With that out of the way, let's see. Can you beat Spyro the Dragon without being a dragon? We open with the dragons being interviewed, seemingly because of how awesome everything's going for them. This dum-dum here decides to start dissing Gnasty Gnorc on live TV. He of course is watching, and in a fit of rage turns all the dragons into crystal. Except Spyro, somehow, so it's up to him to save everyone. We start off in the Artisan homeworld. The homeworlds are essentially hub areas housing gateways to the other levels. They have their own gems and dragons to collect, so I'll be talking about them like any other level. We get rid of sparks by jumping into the pond to our right before moving on with collecting. While over at this pond, we free Delbin, then head back to where we started to release Nesta. Since enemies give us gems the first time we take them out, we need to keep track of which enemies we have and haven't dealt with to get as much treasure as we can. If we go through the corridor straight ahead, we can talk to the balloonist who'll say they'll take us to the next homeworld once we've collected 10 dragons. Back in the main area of the homeworld, go down the corridor to the right of where you spawned to free Thomas.
Hey Spyro, press the jump button twice to glide.
Someone wasn't paying attention to the rules of the run. It's in this area that we face our first problem. In order to get to the top of these towers, we need to use this whirlwind. Now, while presumably these will elevate any creature who wanders into them, and should therefore be legal, Spyro decides to glide out of them every time, meaning we can't actually use them in this run. Now, getting up to these towers isn't important for this level, as there's only a couple of gems up there. What's more devastating is that the entrance to another level, Town Square, is up here, meaning if we can't find a way up, we're completely locked out of an entire level's worth of collectibles. I tried my best to jump on top of the lower tower here, and while I was able to get close enough to taste it, I couldn't actually get it to work, though I was able to clip the edge of this treasure chest and at least get a little bit of treasure for my effort. For now, I'm gonna give up on this and hope that there's enough dragons in other levels to get us to Peacekeepers, but if we're ever hurting for collectibles, I'll come back here and try even harder to get up this tower. All the treasure in this level, other than the stuff on top of these towers, is easily collectible. Even these pieces here that are meant to act as a soft gliding tutorial can be collected with a well-aimed charging jump, which we'll be using a lot in this run since it gives us the most distance out of our jumps. We just have one more dragon to free, that being Argus, who's in front of the giant dragon head over here. With that, we've done everything we can in this hub world, finishing with 92 out of 100 treasure and 4 out of 4 dragons collected. Into our first actual level now, Stone Hill. I thought for sure I wouldn't be able to charge these charging rams, but luckily this does actually take these enemies out. After collecting all the treasure in this first area, go down the hallway to the left of where you spawn for some more, as well as our first dragon, Linda. Now make your way through the path to the right of where you spawned to enter another open fieldy area. The shepherd enemies can be really annoying, but in this level they are pretty easy to deal with just by charging directly at them. After collecting all the treasure in this area, we come across a problem in the form of this whirlwind. Usually you'd use this to get to the top of this tower, then glide across to the higher part of the area. Since we can't do either of those things, we're missing out on a big chunk of this level. Go back to the starting area and this time go down the corridor straight ahead from spawn to free Asta, as well as find the endpoint of the level. But we're not done here yet. Jump over this piece of wall and down onto this little beach area. Here you'll find a small cave with a few gems and a key hidden inside. Once you've collected them, leave and come to the shocking realization that the only way back is up another whirlwind, making us trapped down here forever. Or are we? See, there is another way to get back up. Simply throw yourself to the mercy of an uncaring ocean. When Spyro dies, he respawns at the last ferry platform he passed, and since that was just up above this area, we're able to sacrifice a life to continue the level. While I was still in this area around the home platform, I tried my hardest to jump over the rocky wall to get into the higher part of the level, but I couldn't manage it. Back at spawn now, there's this well here we can jump down, hiding some gems, a locked treasure chest, and another dragon. Free Gavin, collect the treasure, and unlock the chest for even more treasure. Now, here we have another problem whirlwind. We need to use it to get out of this area, and this time there's nothing we can use to damage ourselves, and even if we could, we'd just respawn at the ferry platform down here. Well, I do have one more trick up my sleeve. Pause the game and exit the level. It's that simple. Exit platforms in these levels are more of a formality, as you can exit with everything you've collected remaining collected at any time using the pause screen. With that, we've done everything we can in Stone Hill, finishing with 3 out of 4 dragons, 169 out of 200 treasure, and 0 out of 1 dragon eggs. Next up, Dark Hollow. This is our first level with big enemies who can't be charged, making them indestructible in this run. Up this little platform is a locked box we'll open later. Do a charge jump over to the higher area here for some more enemies to defeat and our first dragon, Alpine. Continue through the level and turn to the right to find this little nook. Head down the stairs and the long corridor. The giant enemies here are kind of scary, but they're easy to run past, and even if you do get hit by them, I'm pretty sure they can only bounce you back and not damage you. In this pretty little library area, collect all the gems and the key, as well as releasing Oswin before heading backtrack to the locked chest and use our fancy new key to unlock it before continuing in the level. This area here is pretty tricky, as trying to deal with the smaller enemies or collect the chest guarded by this big one is a good way to get squashed. Luckily, they do have a pretty long recharge, so bait out a 3-hit attack before charging in. Just be quick as to not get got by the bigger dude. I'd also recommend freeing Darvis, the dragon in this area, before going for the enemies in the chests to give us a closer respawn point. With that done, we can leave this level with 79 out of 100 gems and all 3 dragons being collectible. With Dark Hollow done, we actually have exactly enough dragons to move on to the next homeworld, but we still have one more level we can do here first, so we might as well try Toasty. This level is mostly just to house the boss fight with the titular Toasty, and as such there's not much to collect here. That doesn't mean that what there is to collect isn't a pain in the butt though. This level is littered with these dog enemies, which act like long-range landmines. If you get close enough to activate them, they'll start to bark aggressively before jumping at and trying to squash you. Not only that, but these things can change their trajectory in mid-air up to a point, making escaping their flop always feel like a bit of a gamble. They can't even be dealt with since they're only vulnerable to our flame breath, and ramming them does nothing. Luckily, we can defeat the shepherds, but they've now reached peak annoying as well, being paired with these dogs. Ramming them, collecting their gem, and making it out alive is a tall order, especially when they have 2 dogs near them. You can either bait out the belly flops and deal with the shepherds while they recharge, or just do a kamikaze run for each of them. There's only one dragon to collect, that being Nevin, and right after we free him, we can fight Toasty. Unfortunately though, he's immune to our charge, making the rest of this level uncompletable. I tried baiting one of the dogs into squashing him, but no luck, and even if it had worked, I doubt it would have damaged him. With that being said, we exit this level with 39 out of 100 treasure collected and 1 out of 1 dragons freed. There is technically one more level we can access here, that being Sunny Flights, which I would be pretty impressed if you could beat without flying. Now all the levels we can access have been completed, we have 11 dragons freed, just barely more than enough to convince the balloonist to take us to the Peacekeeper's homeworld. Jump off the balloon and immediately free Titan. As well as the standard Norks in this level, we're introduced to a special type who, rather than attacking us directly, will man one of these cannons and shoot at us. They are pretty easy to deal with, but what's more important about them are the cannons, but more on that shortly. Most of the Norks around the tents are little fraidy cats and will run and hide in said tents if we get too close. You won't be able to charge all of them in one go round, so reload the area until you get all of their gems. Near the balloonist, we can release Magnus for his crystal.
Hey, Spyro. Sparks the Dragonfly has been doing a good job protecting you.
What the hell are you talking about? He's done nothing this entire game so far. While we're here, we might as well talk to the balloonist. This time, they'll only take us to the next homeworld once we've collected 1,200 treasure, rather than saving any dragons, which implies to me that in Peacekeepers, capital is considered more important than the safety of its inhabitants. Can't imagine living in such a world. Anyway, we're currently sitting just over a third of that amount, so we better get to collecting. I was never able to charge these Norks before they hid in their tents, and since the tents are immune to being rammed, we can't get them alone. Luckily, there is a cannon nearby. By standing in front of the tent and dodging out of the way at the last second, we can bait the cannon Nork into destroying the tent, giving us access to the sweet Nork booty inside. We can also bait the same Nork into destroying the 2 reinforced chests nearby, giving us a few more gems. Unfortunately though, we can't get him to destroy the rock pillar blocking off the rest of this level. He'll always shoot at Spyro, and no matter how high we jump, we can't get the cannonball on its trajectory to miss us and hit the pillar. Usually, we just aim the cannon ourselves and activate it with our fire breath, but since our headbutt can't activate it, this pillar is completely indestructible and the rest of the level on the other side inaccessible. This locks us off from one dragon, a dragon egg, and a good portion of this homeworld's gems. Luckily though, the only level this stops us from accessing is the flight stage for this world, which we couldn't do anyway, so there's still a lot of levels for us to get the collectibles we need to continue. That's everything we can do in the Peacekeepers homeworld, netting us 2 out of 3 dragons, no eggs, and 116 out of 200 gems. First up, Dry Canyon. The weird fan chest at the start can only be broken with flame, meaning its contents are off limits for us. I tried luring one of the musket enemies to shoot it open, but none seem to have the range. We can however break the chest and launch the gems up, as they do react to being charged, though you do have less time to grab the gem due to the knockback of bonking off the chest. This level is also the first where we can actually catch the thief, or as I called them as a kid, and will continue to call them for the rest of this run, a na-na-na-na-na. They run around this rock formation at the start of the level. It might seem impossible to catch them at first, but just keep chasing them and taking shortcuts where possible and you'll eventually get them. Free Conan and continue down the path to find these bird enemies and these large Norks. The birds can be charged, but as before, large Norks can't, so give them a wide berth or bait out the attacks before trying to get past them. Back down the path a bit, we come to these rock stairs, and at the top we can see a platform. It might appear like we can't get there without gliding, but with a perfectly aimed charge jump, we can actually make it across. I unfortunately lost almost all of my footage for this part, but the dragon here and most of the gems are collectible. The only exceptions are the ones held by the large Norks, of course, as well as the ones on this faraway platform and this slightly closer one. The gems in this area here are actually obtainable, but not from this height. We can jump and stand on these little spike decorations on the side of the building and use them to get up to the slightly higher platform. From this height, we can perform a charging jump to reach the area. All gems here are collectible, even the ones in the firework chests, but since I mentioned I lost the footage of me collecting them, I'll talk about them a bit more next time they come up.
Dry Canyon rewards good gliders. You are a good glider, eh, Spyro?
I was born to glide.
How dare you lie to Boris. We're unable to reach and free the dragon at the end of this level, so we collect the last of the treasure and leave with 3 out of 4 dragons, 1 dragon egg, and 261 out of 400 gems collected. Up next is Cliff Town. There's really not that much I can even do here, as a large part of this level is beyond the river, and yeah, I don't think a charge jump's gonna cut it here. This level has another na-na-na-na-na we're able to reach and chase down for our second dragon egg of the game. We're unable to get up to the platform with the firework, and even if we could, we wouldn't be able to activate it, so the reinforced chest is out of the question. While once again the big enemies are undefeatable, I found out later that these large ladies can't actually do any damage to us either, so we don't have to be super careful around them. As I mentioned, there's not really much interesting to talk about with this level since we can't get across the river, so let's move on. We exit Clifftown with 2 out of 3 dragons, 1 dragon egg, and 183 out of 400 gems. Ice Cavern is our next destination. I found the bats that we would usually torch to get more sparks health to be kind of annoying, as they follow me around in such a way that I kept thinking they were enemies and trying to damage me. Other than that, this is probably the easiest and most completable level in Peacekeepers. We're able to collect almost everything this level has to offer. We can't get over to this platform with the key, which is unfortunate, but not the worst thing in the world. We even come across the first large enemies we can actually successfully defeat. These armored dudes will slide back on the ice when charged, and in 1 or 2 hits will fall off the edge, gifting us their gem. This Nork here is a bit annoying to get around, but by baiting and jumping around him perfectly, we can get past.
Thank you for releasing me.
Thanks for the insight there, Andor. Remember to charge these lampposts, as the gems on top aren't just decoration and do count to our total. With that done, we've collected all 5 dragons and 330 out of 400 gems. Adding these gems to our total, we just passed the threshold for the blueness to take us to the next homeworld, but we still have a level to explore. Dr. Shemp is another boss stage, and we can barely progress in this one. Once we get past the last set of charging enemies, we can't go any further without using the whirlwind, meaning we can only collect a pitiful 111 out of 300 gems, and can't even get the only dragon here. With all the levels in the Peacekeeper's homeworld complete, we just narrowly passed the threshold to move on to Magic Crafters, with 1,389 gems collected, 23 dragons freed, and 2 dragon eggs rescued. This is getting a little worrying, since for both the progression checks so far, I've barely had enough to get by, and I can only imagine that the later levels will be even harder to actually collect anything in, making it even tighter. But that's a problem for later. For right now, let's talk to the blueness and move on to Magic Crafters. This is probably my favourite homeworld in the game. I just find the lush, mountainy aesthetic very pretty to look at. We're also able to complete a surprisingly large amount of this level too. The na-na-na-na-na at the very beginning can be a little tricky, as they'll jump up into this inaccessible area if we don't get them quickly enough. When you first start the chase, don't run at them, run where they'll start running, and you'll cut them off, scoring the egg easily. There's another na-na-na-na-na in this area who is slightly harder, but chase them down for long enough and you'll get them eventually. These wizard enemies love moving platforms around them to stop you from getting to them, but as long as you charge straight at them, you can take them down before they get out of the way. These ones over here though will continuously raise a barrier too quick for us to get past, stopping us from progressing in the level. This is where our first power-up of the game comes into play, the supercharge ramp. Over near our good buddy here, there's a set of arrows pointing down this cliff. Whenever you see these arrows, charge in the direction they're pointing and Spyro will start to gain immense speed. We can use this to get past the wizards here before they can raise the barrier and take them out so they won't be bothering us again. Supercharging has a lot more uses than just gaining speed though. For one, a jump from a supercharge gives us much more distance than a regular charging jump, meaning in some cases we might be able to use this to substitute for a glide. It also gives us improved strength, allowing us to deal with otherwise unchargeable enemies and boxes. We can use this to break both of the fan chests as well as the reinforced one later on in this level. Continue on to find the balloonist. This time we have to have at least 5 dragon eggs for them to escort us to the next homeworld. After this level we already have 4, so we just have to find 1 more and we'll be golden. Grab the key from inside this little tower and go back to the supercharge ramp. Charge down it and then drop down to the lower area, aiming for the little cave over here. With a perfectly timed and aimed jump, we can make it into the cave to unlock the chest for the last gems in this homeworld, making this the first level we can actually 100% complete. Getting this jump will probably take a few tries, as supercharging is very hard to control and jumps from it can be a bit unpredictable, but keep trying and you'll eventually nail it. Our first proper level in Magic Crafters is Alpine Ridge, and this one's basically a non-starter. The big bear enemies will walk up to and scratch at you as long as the enemy commanding them is still alive. Take them out and the bear will now just act like the dogs in Toasty and flop on you if you get too close. This enemy riding one of the bears has a separate hitbox, so by getting up to a higher area and charging off, we can take them out while they're still riding it. Just after we free our first dragon, Zane, we come across this wide gap. I thought we couldn't get over it, but by charge jumping at the very corner of this platform towards the closest corner of the lower one, we can make it. We can also make it across to where the mage is lifting and lowering the wall. Walk around the bear standing on the stone edge to avoid its aggro range. Charge and jump at the last second and you should make it across. This one is slightly harder than the last, but I was still able to get it more often than I wasn't. Unfortunately, the majority of this level is a no-go, as there's no way a regular jump is getting us over this gap. So that's it for Alpine Ridge, with just 1 dragon freed, 113 out of 500 treasure retrieved, and no dragon eggs collected. Not quite sure what was going on with the wizards back in the homeworld, but onto high caves now. Over to our left, the ice and wind wizards are warring it out. While their attention is mainly on attacking each other, it's still easy to get caught up in the crossfire, so be careful when heading this way. The wind wizards can be charged, but the ice ones are counted as bigger enemies and as such can't be. This one here is especially annoying, as in order to get around them we need to jump towards the edge of the cliff, which feels a little scary to do but is possible. There's another wind wizard up here, so be careful as you ascend and free Cyrus. Now let's head into the titular cave. The metal spiders are immune to both fire and being charged, so we'll need something a little stronger to deal with them. At the other end of the cave, free Ajax, then go to the right where there is a hill with a supercharge ramp. This ramp is going to be our main way to get through this level, so get used to coming back up here. Charge down the ramp and make a sharp turn to the left to re-enter the cave. A supercharge is strong enough to take out these spiders, so backtrack through the cave, taking them all out on the way. This can be really hard as I mentioned before, the supercharge is hard to control and ramming into any of the cave walls cancels it, so you'll need some extreme skill to get all the spiders. If you're even more skilled, then you can actually make it all the way back out to the starting area and supercharge the ice wizards we couldn't before. The supercharge actually gets faster the longer you use it, and by the time you reach the cave entrance, you'll be at max speed, making it almost impossible to navigate up this area, and even if you get all the wizards, you'll almost definitely end up charging off the side of the cliff, so be prepared to try this over and over again before you get it. I also came across this weird glitch while attempting this. While supercharging, Spyro ran into a wall, but instead of cancelling the charge, he got really slow, though humorously continued the animation of running at max speed. After a few seconds, he then sped back up to max speed. No idea what was going on here, but just thought it was fun to mention. You won't be able to get any of the spiders in the area up these stairs here, since the supercharge jump can't clear them. At the end of this part of the cave, we find our second power-up. This fairy will give Spyro a kiss, which strengthens our fire breath. It doesn't really help us in this run, of course, but if you do accidentally activate the power, Spyro will automatically spit out some fire. As long as this burst of flame doesn't defeat some otherwise undefeatable enemy, I wouldn't count this as invalidating your run. Make your way to the top of the charge ramp for round 2. The 2 caves on the other side of this chasm are very easy to supercharge jump into and collect everything inside, and even if you do miss and fall down the gap, there are these fairies in this area who will save you. If you can hold a supercharge all the way through this cave on the left, you can jump into this little room you'd otherwise have to glide into. You can also use the supercharge to safely headbutt these firework chests without taking any damage. You can actually still get the gems from these chests just by charging them normally, but without sparks, this means sacrificing a life for each chest, which can get a little tedious. There are 2 areas left to explore, and both we need to be a little tricky to get into. The 2 rooms over here are meant to be glided to, but a well-aimed supercharge jump does the trick as well. As with all supercharge jumps, this will take a few attempts, but since we can't fall to our deaths here, you don't have to worry about wasting any lives. The room on the left only houses a couple of gems, but the one on the right has a na-na-na-na-na. The one on the left is slightly easier to get to, so aim for that one, and once you've collected all the treasure, do a regular charge jump to get over to the other side. Cut the na-na-na-na-na off as they jump off the ledge here, and you'll get them very easily. We just have one area left to explore now here, and it's this distant outcrop. Even a supercharge jump straight at the platform isn't going to cut it, as we won't have built up enough speed, so we'll have to get more creative to get over there. Start supercharging and jump into the cave directly ahead. Hold this charge all the way through the cave and out the other end. Jump towards the walkway around this building here and try to land in such a way that you won't charge straight into the wall. It's around here that you'll reach max speed. From the walkway, jump back to the area you started with the supercharge ramp and aim yourself towards the distant platform. Your jump off the ramp still needs to be perfect, but if you manage it, you'll have enough speed to clear the entire chasm and then some with this supercharge jump. Be careful landing on the other side, as there are sheep here, and if you ram him, sparks will come back and start collecting gems, technically invalidating the run. Once I got this trick, I just sat there in amazement that I'd actually pulled it off. This was easily the most satisfying part of the run. There are a few chests on this platform we need a supercharge to break through, but I don't think we'd be able to hold it to reach them. Collect everything in this area and we're finally done with this level, ending with 440 out of 500 gems, all 3 dragons, and 2 out of 2 eggs nabbed. This gives us more than enough eggs to reach the Beastmaker's homeworld, but we still have 2 levels to explore first. Next up is Wizard Peaks. You can make your way around the side of the building for a little to get a few gems, but you'll eventually come to a whirlwind blocking your path. The giant enemies in this level I found very annoying, as they have a deceptively long range and I felt like the recharge on their attacks was a lot quicker. They can also hit you even if you're lower than them, which doesn't feel right. Like, seriously, how did that hit me? Just after we free Jarvis, we can find 2 supercharge ramps facing each other. Use these to take out the wizards and the chests sitting in the area between them. You can use the one facing back to the building you came from to backtrack and supercharge some of the giant enemies, but getting through this narrow window and over the bridge is very hard, and even if you can, most of the giants require too narrow of a turn to make with a supercharge. So if you're not going for a high completage percentage like me and are just trying to beat the game within this rule set, I wouldn't worry about these guys. There's another set of ramps facing each other just after this. You can use this one to supercharge jump over to the distant platform for some treasure and an easy egg, but you won't be able to make it back, requiring you to either die or exit and re-enter the level. You can also make it to the other distant platform by holding a supercharge jump for more gems, but you won't be able to make it to the other platforms without gliding, so again you'll have to quit or die to get back to the rest of the level. The first 3 large enemies here can be supercharged, but you'll almost definitely plummet to your death after the last one. Since you can't hold a supercharge all the way up this path, we'll have to be very careful to collect everything without getting squashed. Chasing the na around the pool of water requires way too tight of a turn to make, so instead line up a charging jump across the pool to cut them off and take them out as they start running. Make sure you're jumping away from the large enemy on the lower platform however, so they don't squash you if you miss your target. We make our way up the rest of the path to free Lucas, who doesn't seem to mind being completely surrounded by enemies. We can now exit Wizard Peaks with 3 out of 3 dragons freed, 380 out of 500 treasure recovered, and 2 out of 2 dragon eggs liberated. Blowhard is this world's boss and is the first boss we can actually defeat since they're weak to charge attacks. There's a couple of firework chests which we have to sacrifice a life to open, which I'd leave to the end to make this level flow a bit better. The only other thing of note here is that these wizards who move the platforms around can't be charged in this level despite this working on these enemies everywhere else. I first thought that maybe they couldn't be defeated at all and were here more so as set dressing for the level, but I tested this by flaming one and no, they were still defeatable, so no clue why they suddenly can't be charged, but whatever. We beat Blowhard with 1 out of 1 dragon and 360 out of 400 treasure collected. Now that all of the levels are done and with an abundance of dragon eggs, we can speak to the balloonist and move on to beast makers. The Beastmaker's homeworld is a simple one and you can reach everything here pretty much as intended, with the exception of these distant logs which require a glide and this building which we need to use a whirlwind to get to. These boars confuse me a little bit. In a battle between our chargers, they win, so I figured we're just unable to defeat them, but then for some reason when I would jump off onto the next platform, they would mysteriously die. I figured out later they were actually charging into the water which takes them out for us. This only works for me on these two here as well as the one by the tree. The one hiding behind the building won't follow you into the water as far as I can tell. There are a few gems down this well as well as the flight level for this homeworld. We can't get back out of here without using the whirlwind, so quit the game and reload to spawn back at the start of the level. With everything done, we should talk to the balloonist. This time they want us to free 50 dragons in order to let us past. With the ones in this homeworld freed, we only sit at 36, meaning we're going to need to find 14 more dragons to continue. A tall order to be sure, so let's get searching. We complete the Beast Makers with 221 out of 300 treasure and both dragons collected. Terrace Village is first. The giant enemies here, as always, are a pain to get around, but unlike the other variants who slam attacks down at you, these guys jab forward at you with these electric sticks, which can actually be jumped over, making them slightly easier to get past. Getting this small enemy here is a real pain to do without getting hit by the big fella, but it is possible. Since we can't flame the fireworks or even reach some of them, and there's no supercharge in this level, the reinforced chests are a no-go. Getting past this dude here isn't hard, but the platform we land on the other side is periodically electrified by this guy, so we have to time our jump well and quickly charge them to not get zapped. We can't get to any of the other platforms with a charge jump as far as I can tell, so that's it for this level, adding 194 out of 400 treasure and 2 out of 2 dragons. Misty Bog might just be my least favourite level in the game, solely because of these annoying tree shrub enemy things. They're fast, attack you out of nowhere, and can't be charged, meaning you can't even get rid of them. Plus, they're just plain creepy, both with their design and how they psychotically writhe and jitter around when you're nearby. Ugh. I died so much of them, I actually ended up using a 99 life code to make dying less of a hassle. I originally thought this would be off limits, since when I looked up the code I saw that it uses R2, which is the flame breath button, but since you input this on the pause menu, it doesn't count. If you're fast enough, you can just barely scoop up the gems in the first area with the shrub enemies, but you'll probably have to take a few runs at it to get them all. You can't make the jump to the next platform from the ground level, so jump up onto this little piece of wall here and charge jump off the end. It's very tight, but if you're perfect, you can barely make it. I'd recommend going straight over to Free Roscoe to give you a spawn point on this side of the water, though it doesn't really matter since there's not much else we can even do in this level. We can make it to this platform with the boar chasing the Nork, but I couldn't get the boar to charge into the water like I could in the homeworld. The only other area is this pathway here. If we had Sparks, we could sacrifice him in the water to get across, but without him, there's no way we can jump across this. Hopefully the next level is more completable. We leave Misty Bog with 99 out of 500 treasure and only 1 out of 4 dragons retrieved. Onto Treetops, and this one is even less doable than Misty Bog. The whole idea of this level is to master supercharge ramps, which should be right up our alley, right? Well, yeah, it would be, if we could reach any of the ramps, but as it stands, we can't even get to the first dragon. I tried again and again to make this jump. It looks so doable, and I came so close, but I just couldn't make it. This level also has a gimmick where na-na-na-na-nas run around throughout carrying gems, not eggs. I thought I wouldn't be able to get to any of them, but I was able to catch the first one purely because they glitched out and got stuck on these stairs. Guess I got the last laugh here, sucker. But yeah, that's all I can say really. We only score a pitiful 74 out of the 500 gems and none of the 3 dragons in Treetops. Metalhead is our next... Wrong Metalhead. There we go, is our next stage and is another boss, and just like Blowhard, they can be easily defeated. We don't actually fight them directly, rather just charge the Tesla things charging them up. After 2 rounds of this, they're out of here. When they die, they take all the enemies in the area with them, even the big ones, but unfortunately we can't claim any of their gems since they're beyond this whirlwind. The main portion of this level is very easy, just watch out for the monkey men who get rolled at you, as they caught me off guard a few times. I tried to get into the secret sewer area, but I couldn't make it. With Metalhead defeated, we can leave with 265 out of 500 gems collected and all dragons freed. So onto Dreamweaver's homeworld, right? Well, no, we still don't have nearly enough dragons. To be honest, this has been a foregone conclusion for a while now, as even if I were able to collect all the dragons in every Beastmaker's level, we still wouldn't have enough to meet the balloonist requirement. I went back to older levels I missed dragons in and tried as hard as I could to collect them. I looked up out of bounds glitches and skips, and when none of them worked, I bashed my head against every wall I could looking for my own, but no avail. Without changing the rules of this run, this is the end. It's not possible to beat Spyro the Dragon without being a dragon, or at least without being a flying creature of some sort, I guess. We end with a completion percentage of just 38%, which sucks. I thought we'd at least get 50%. I didn't want to end it on such an anticlimactic note though, so let's go through the last couple of levels and homeworlds a bit more rapid fire style and see what can and can't be collected without being a dragon still. And what better place to start than with Town Square, the level all the way back in Artisans we couldn't access. Town Square essentially acts as a gliding tutorial, so are you even surprised we can barely progress? I was able to save Nars, but was then faced with this massive gap. To my shock, I could actually barely make it across. We can charge the bulls and even get to this platform by charge jumping from the second step, but no matter how hard I tried, the gap across the water seems unjumpable. I swear I've seen people do this in the PS1 version, so either it was changed for the remake or I just suck. But either way, Town Square nets us 1 out of 4 dragons, 38 out of 200 gems, and no dragon eggs. We're still nowhere near the required amount to get past Beastmakers, so since we're just playing for fun at this point, I broke the rules of the run to collect just enough dragons to continue to Dreamweavers while avoiding all other collectibles. So Dreamweaver's homeworld is basically a bunch of floating islands in the sky, and if you guessed we'd have to glide to get off the first one, you'd be correct. There are 2 paths we can take, and both of them require a glide. There's not even a single dragon on our starting platform, and only 17 out of 300 gems. Again, this is just for fun now, so let's glide around to the other levels and see how completable they all are. Haunted Tower is, surprise surprise, another level we can barely even get started in. This haunted suit of armor follows our movements exactly, so we can't get around them. We'd have to get the super flame power up from this fairy, which is obviously against the rules. Haunted Tower has 0 out of 3 dragons and 29 out of 500 treasure collectible. Dark Passage is up next, and this is a really fun one. You see, it has this gimmick with these dog enemies where, are you kidding me? This is right at the start of the level, and there's no way past it. It's like the developers knew I'd try this run and wanted to make me go insane. 47 out of 500 gems and no dragons. Moving on. Lofty Castle next. Are you even surprised we can't do anything in this level? With a well-aimed charge jump, you can deal with the 2 enemies circling this platform, but without using the whirlwind right here, we're stuck and only able to collect 19 out of 400 gems and no dragons. The boss for this world, Jacques, is our last chance to get even a single dragon, and luckily we can actually get somewhere here. Getting around these enemies with the flowers is a real pain without getting hit, but with enough attempts you can sneak past them all and get the gems they guard. Freeing Ravello is easy, but we can't get to the other dragon in this level even if we charge the Time Wizard dude and raise this platform for extra height. Jacques himself is immune to our charges, so we can't progress at all in this fight, meaning we leave with 1 out of 2 dragons and 220 out of 500 treasure. Talk to the balloonist who wants a staggering 6,000 gems to take us to the next hub world. They don't even come up with an excuse this time, they literally just say, screw you, pay me. We need almost 2,000 more gems to pass this jerk's paywall. Fine, whatever. Go to all the previous levels, break the rules countless times to get as many gems as we can, screw it, do a couple flight levels while we're at it. Doesn't matter at this point, and there, 6,000 gems exactly. On to Ganassi's Nexus. We're able to collect everything in this hub world, but not straight up since a lot of the treasure is hidden inside these dragon heads along with the portals to the other levels. The only way to open them is by getting to the previous level's exit. There's only 1 level open to us right now, so we have to start there. Nork Cove is up first. We can defeat some of the large enemies as long as there's a metal barrel for us to send flying at them. We can hit both the reinforced chest and the enemy holding TNT with this barrel here, but the Nork rolling barrels is a no-go as if we bash the barrel at them we plummet to a watery grave. This gap here worried me, but fortunately it's actually very easy to get across. This Nork here is our first real challenge. We can't hit them with the closest barrel and there's very little space to get around them. They also have one of the most annoying attacks of any of the large enemies in this game, being very quick to perform and recharge, making baiting one of these out to get past not an easy task. It's still possible to get past them, but just just barely. Not long after this, we come to a full-on roadblock. We have to get across these gaps to get to the exit portal, and while we can get across the first one, the second one is too far for us to reach. Even if we could get across this gap, to get to the exit portal, we need to use a whirlwind, making this double impossible. Usually, we would just exit this level through the pause screen, but unfortunately, as I mentioned before, we have to get to the exit portal to activate the next level this time. Yet another point that ends this run. Guess we can just break the rules again to get to the exit portal and leave with 335 out of 400 treasure and both dragons got. Twilight Harbor. This whirlwind stops us in our tracks. It's not even like 15 seconds into the level. Obviously, this means we can't collect any of the dragons, and more importantly, once again, can't reach the exit portal to activate the final level. Collect the 24 gems you can in this area, then cheat your way to the exit portal, trying to avoid as many collectibles as possible to try and keep at least a fraction of this challenge run alive, and move on to the final boss. And the icing on the cake, the Ganasty man himself is immune to our charges, meaning even if we could have gotten here without all the cheating, we still wouldn't be able to get past the final boss. We collect 375 consolation gems, and with that, I can confirm that it is not possible to beat Spyro the Dragon without being a dragon. It's not even close. The entire second half of this game felt like the developers were playing some sick joke on me for even daring to try this. I wanted to do Spyro 2 and 3 and heck, maybe even Enter the Dragonfly eventually with these rules, but after how I failed this run, I was wondering if it's even worth attempting. Well, I can think of some glitches and exploits in those games that might help us make it through, so I guess it's still worth it, but not just yet. I have another game to crash through first. So until then, thanks for watching. If you have any ideas on ways to make this run more doable, please leave them down in the comments, and if you enjoyed, consider liking and subscribing. Until next time, I'm Katie Cat, and thank you for watching. As to you too, mate.